Welcome to week 4. So from last week, you learned words like relationship, function, domain, and then the range. And you also learned the Cartesian coordinates. So there are 4 quadrants in counterclockwise order. Also, you learned how to graph using a table. And lastly, you learned how to find the x-intercept and y-intercept. If you're unsure in any of the things, you might want to watch the previous video. So for this week, the topics are equations and graphing. So after this class, if I give you an equation, say, you can give me a graph, okay? And you should be able to explain the graph in words. Or vice versa. So if I give you the words, you can create the graph, and then from the graph, you can extract the equation, or between equations and words. Okay. So if I give you any one of these things, you should be able to give me the other two. So how do you do that? Let's practice. Okay. So Denise, here's a graph. This is in miles, so distance. This is in hours, so the time. Given this graph, explain to me what Denise was doing. Okay, so that's the question. So to read the graph, here's how you do it. You look at the kinks. So there are 2 kinks here, and then here. So that means there's 3 pieces. Here, here, and then back here. Okay, so let's talk about first part. She went 4 miles, and then she took 2 hours to do so. That's the intersection of 2 hours and the 4 miles right here. Between hours 2 and then 5, what did she do? Well, she didn't make a move. The distance-wise, she didn't go up or down. So that means she was resting for 3 hours between hour 2 and then hour 5. And then she went backwards. So that means she went home. But this time she took 4 hours to go home to take 4 miles. So that's how you this is how you describe a graph. Just look at the kinks and tell me what's going on from the labels, miles and then hours. Okay. So the next thing is linear equation. Okay. I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But first, let's look at the table. M and then the C. -3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 6, 8. -3, 3, 5, 7, 9, 15, and then 19. So from last week, you learned how to graph this thing. So let's graph this. So you should do 3 points. So let's say I do this, this, and then say this, 2 and 7. So -3 and 3 is over here. It's -3 and then -3. Let's do 0 and 3. 0 here, 1, 2, 3. So like over here. That's 0 and 3. And let's do 2 and 7. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that looks like a straight line. That's 2 and 7 there. Let's line it up. So here's your graph. As you can see, this graph is a straight line. And then we knew that because it's called a linear equation. Linear means it's a straight line. So the graph of the linear equation will be a straight line, as you see it here. So what's the equation for this? Well, from the table, I can extract that it's going to be C is equal to Cm, or 2m plus 3. Okay, we're going to get to how to get this, but for now, just look at this and learn that this is a form of what we call the slope-intercept form. Okay. More specifically, the template is y is equal to mx plus b. So when you see this form, it's called a slope-intercept form. And it's always going to be a linear equation. So if you graph this kind of problem, you always have a straight line. Okay? Just a quick review. Each point has an address, what we call the address, the coordinates. So here's a coordinate, here's a coordinate, here's a coordinate here. So let's say I look at 2 and 7. Okay. The 2 represents the x value, and then the 7 represents the y value. So it's an ordered pair because it's a pair. And it's called an ordered pair because it's in alphabetical order, x and then y. So if I give you a point like this, the coordinates, that means the 2 represents the x, and the 7 represents the y. So now you know what that means. So what's this mx plus b business? Well, m stands for the slope. Why not s? I don't know. But m has 3 characteristics. Say m is less than 0. That means the slope is downward. If m is equal to 0, that means it's horizontal. Okay. And then if m is greater than 0, that means it's upward. The slope is upward. So for example, here, the 2 represents the slope. And it's greater than 0, so that means it's upward as you see it here. Okay. How do you calculate the slope? Well, there are 2 ways. If you have a graph, there's one way. If you don't have a graph, the second way, the formula way. The slope could be calculated by rise over run. Or, if you don't have a graph, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you should remember this formula right here. So let's do an example for each of these and then see that they're the same, regardless how you do it. So let's say I have a point 2 and then 3, and then -6 and then 1. So let's plot this. So 2 and 3. Let's do that first. Start here. 1, 2. Go up 3, 1, 2, 3. But these are both positive. Next one is -6. So let's do -6 first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 1. So it's over here. So the graph will look like this. Okay. Looks like the slope should be a positive number. We'll see. So let's use the rise over run business. So if you remember the Pac-Man game, you know that the Pac-Man can go either up or down or left or right. Same thing over here. Run means the horizontal movement. Rise means the vertical movement. Okay. So you can start from either point, but let's say we start from here. So how many horizontal steps do I need to go in order to get here? So from here, I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm just going to put the dot here temporarily. So I need to move 8 spaces. And then how many spots do I need to go? Up or down? I'm going to go up because it's up here. So 1, 2. So 2 over 8. If you simplify that, it's 1 over 4. So that's the slope for this line. Let's do the formula way. How does that work? Well, what are these 2, 1, 2, 1 here? Well, these are called the index or indices. So that means the y value of the second point, y value of the first point, same here, x value of the second point, and the x value of the first point. So here are the 2 points. So I'm going to label this the first point, second point. Doesn't matter which one you do. You could do 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. I just do 1 and 2 just because it's in order. So if that's the case, what's y2? 2, 1 here. Where's the y1? Well, 3. x2, x to the second point, negative 6. And then x of 1, first one, 2. So if you do this, 1 minus 3, that's negative 2, divided by negative 6 minus 2, negative 8. So the negatives cancel off. 2 over 8, we already saw that. It's the same as 1 over 4 here, so 1 over 4. Okay. So as you can see, they match. Doesn't matter which way you do it. So that's how you can find the slope. So what kind of problems can I give you from this topic? Finding the equation. If I ask you to find the equation, there are going to be 3 types. First type is finding the equation given a slope and then y-intercept. The second type is to find the equation given a point and then the slope. And the last one is finding the equation given 2 points. So the order of difficulty is 1, 2, 3. So we're going to cover from the top. Find the equation given that slope and then the intercept. All right. First question says, given the m is 5, y-intercept of 3, find the equation of the line. This is very easy because if you remember, the template is this. To find the equation, your job is to figure out what the m is and what the b is. And then x and y are variables, so they're always going to be y and the x. So your job is to find the m and then the b. If you go back to the problem, what's m? 5. This b is called a y-intercept, which is given to you. So in this case, y is equal to 5x plus 3. That's your final answer. You find the equation in the form of this, and that's what we want. So done. Okay. So number 2 is slope and then the point. These are given. So how do you find the equation out of that? Okay. Second question says slope is 5 over 4, and then the point is 3 and then negative 7. Okay. So I need to fill in the m and then the b. If you look at it, the slope is given to you, 5 over 4. So let's plug that in. Now, how do we find the b? Well, we are going to use the point, which is right here. 3 and then negative 7. 3 represents, if you remember, that's the x value. This part represents the y value, which is negative 7. So what we're going to do is plug those in here. negative 7 is 5 over 4 times 3 plus b. Now you're going to find the b, but this is just like solving an equation, so let's use those skills to figure this out. So this is going to be negative 7 is 5 times 3, that's 15 over 4 plus b. I'm going to flip this to look like, let's get rid of the 15 over 4. So that means b is equal to negative 7 minus 15 over 4. So to do this in your calculator, type in negative sign, 7 minus sign, 15, A, B, C button, 4 is equal to, and you should get negative 7 minus 15 over 4 is 10 3/4, but we want that in improper fraction, so press the second key and the ABC key. Gives you negative 43 over 4. Second key, ABC, to get negative 43 over 4. So that's the B. The final answer is then 5 over 4 x minus 43 over 4. That's your final answer for this. Last one. For this, you're given order pairs. Negative 3, negative 5, negative 4, and then 12. So you're not given either the slope or the y-intercept. So you're going to have to figure out both of them. So the steps are, first, you figure out the slope. Remember the formula for the slope, which is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Okay. So remember that. I'm going to label this as the first point and then the second point. So y2, which is here, 12 minus y1, which is negative 5, so it's going to be double negative. This is from the formula, this is from this negative 5 here. x2 will be this number, negative 4, minus from the formula, what's x1? Negative 3, so it's going to be double negative as well. 12 minus minus 5, so that's double negative, so 12 plus 5, that's going to be 17. Negative 4 minus negative 3, so that's double negative, make it a positive. So that's going to be negative 4 plus 1, negative 1. So the slope is 17. Alrighty. So now I know the slope. How do you figure out the intercept? Well, I had 2 points. So if I have a point and then the slope, how do you do that? If you think about it, that's what we just did, scenario 2. I have the slope and then the point. So you can use either point to solve this. Which one do you want to use, 1 or 2? It really doesn't make a difference. But I like to make it as things easy. And the easiest ones are the ones without the negative signs, or at least the least amount of negative signs. So between 1 and 2, I'm going to use 2 as my point. So the template is this. Let's plug it in. 12 is negative 17 plus b. That makes 12. It's equal to 68 plus b. B is then negative 56. So, plug it back in. The final answer is negative 17x minus 56. That's your final answer. This is the hardest one of all three, but follow the steps and you get it. Okay. So what are some of the applications I can ask you? Application of these concepts. Given this formula, what's y when x is 6? Well, just plug it in. Y is going to be 1/3 times 6 minus 3. So 1 divided by 3 times 6, that's like saying 6 divided by 3, so that's going to be 2. 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. Easy. So now let's turn to page 219 and do lines A, B, C, and then E. We're going to skip line D and fill in the blanks. So line A, the equation is y is equal to half x plus 3. I need to figure out x-intercept, y-intercept, and then the slope. Well, y-intercept is given to you, 3, which is this number. That's why it's called a slope-intercept, because this is the slope and that's the intercept. So having said that, what's the slope? Half. Okay. What's the x-intercept? Now you're going to have to do some calculations. To find the x-intercept, your step is to make the y 0. So 0 is equal to half x plus 3. Flip it around. Minus 3 minus 3. So that makes it half x is negative 3. What's x? Well, this means x is divided by 2, half fraction. So how do you undo multiplication or division? Multiply by 2. 2 cancels off, x stays. Negative 3 times 6, or negative 3 times 2, that's negative 6. So that's your final answer. Okay. What's the second one? Y is equal to the x-intercept is given to you, 2. What's the y-intercept? If it's in that form, it's always this number right here. So 2. What's the slope? What's the number in front of x? In this case, negative 1. Okay. So let's do C. Y is half x minus 3. Slope is given to you, half. What's the y-intercept? Easy. This number. So let's do the calculation for x-intercept again. So again, 0, make the y 0. Half x, oops. Oh yeah, half x minus 3. Fx minus 3 is 0. Add the 3. So half x is 3. Same deal as before. This is divided by 2, so how do I undo that? Multiply by 2. So multiply this side by 2, multiply that side by 2, you get x is 6. So 6 right there. E says 0x plus 1. Okay? If you look at E, it's a horizontal line. Remember when it's horizontal, what the m is, what the slope is? 0. So the slope is 0. What's the y-intercept? It's this number right here. What's the x-intercept? Well, let's look at the graph, E. Does it ever touch the x-axis? No. So you don't have any x-intercept. Either blank or not there. Okay. So that's how you do a problem like number 7 on page 219. So moving on to the next topic. Let's draw a line if you're given a slope and then a point. The point is at -3 and then the 1. And then slope is 2/3. So I need to have another point in order for me to draw a line that passes through 2 points. From geometry, you know that you need at least 2 points to draw a line. So let's do another point, starting from here. So where do I go? Well, that's what the slope gives you. Remember, this 2 represents the rise, and then 3 represents the run, and they're in the both positive direction. So let's do 3 movement, 3 spots. 1, 2, 3. So it's somewhere along this y-axis. And then where? 1, 2. So you're up here. So you have 2 points. If you're confident those are the right 2 points, draw a line. That's how you graph something if you're given a point and then the slope. Easy. Sometimes you're asked to convert it to convert an equation to look like in that format. How do you do that? So let's say you have something like this. So this is a fraction. If you remember something about the fraction, this 10 is common to both this 15 and -5x. So let's split them up. 15/10 minus 5/10. Kind of getting close because I want the order to be x first and then the slope, or the intercept. So let's flip this. So punch this in your calculator, 5 ABC 10, and you get 1/2. Do the same thing for 15 ABC 10, and you get 1 1/2. Do second key and then ABC button again, and then you end up with 3/2. So y is equal to -1/2 x plus 3/2. This fits this, so the conversion is done. Alrighty. How about extracting an equation from a graph? So you have a graph that goes like this. Find the equation for this graph. So you know that the you're going to have to find the m and then the b. Here's a little trick. If you have a graph like this that passes through the y-axis, that point right there is the y-intercept, because again this graph is intercepting the y-axis. So what's the value for that? Well, that'll be 4 here. Why is that useful? Because this template requires the b, and that's the same value as the y-intercept. So boom, right away you know the answer. So now you have to find the slope. Okay. Let's use the slope function. You can use any of the 2 points. But I'm going to use this and then this. You see why in a minute. Okay. So let's make that a 1 here, and then that's a 2. What's y2? 0. Minus y1, 4 there. x2, 8. Minus x1, 0. The reason I picked those 2 points, the intercepts, is because it makes the calculation easy. 0 and 0 here. So negative 4 over 8, which is the same as negative 1 here. You can pick any 2 points, so why not make your life easier and picking easy points? So if you have a point on the axis, just pick those. There you go. So then the final answer is negative half x plus 4. Okay. So let's wrap it up by finding the slope of y is 5, and then x is negative 3. So y is 5, what does that mean? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means that regardless what the x is, y is always 5. So what's the slope for that? Well, that's a horizontal line. And if you remember what the horizontal line is, the slope is 0. Okay? How about x is negative 3? 1, 2, 3. So that means it doesn't matter what the y is, the x is always going to be negative 3. So that is represented by a line. That's vertical. What is the slope of a vertical line? Well, by definition, we don't know. It's undefined. It's undefined, so there's no definition, so that's undefined. If that makes any sense. So if you have a vertical line, the slope is always going to be undefined. And if you have a horizontal line, the slope is always going to be 0. Any other ones, you use this formula to figure it out. And that's all there is for week 4.